What it is, everybody, welcome again to a fantastic episode of What We Talk About. Brought to you by yours truly, Aaron Montgomery, and my good friend
Donovan Woods.
And we have conversations now and then. Some are interesting, some are not. Some are funny, some are not. What we thought was, why not bring it to the public and see how they felt about it? So let's get to proceeding this evening. What we talk about tonight?
We're going to talk about television shows, some of your favorite television shows, and I want to kind of narrow in on one particular one. But give me, since 1990, your favorite network television shows that's any genre. Top 5.
Nah, I can't give you 5.
Okay.
I can't give you 5 because
Alright.
I watch a lot of older stuff.
Okay. Just mark that off the segment here. Okay. All right.
Like I like The Office. The Office is probably up there. The Office is probably number 1.
Okay. I vouch for that.
I love Breaking Bad as a show.
Okay. It's 2.
It's a well written and directed and acted show. And amongst there, I will put this number 3, Friday Night Lights.
Oh, interesting. You mentioned that one. I think we can kind of just pause right there. I too love Friday Night Lights. It's definitely in my top 5 network televisions of the last 30 years. I think the only thing that got me as pumped up to watch a new episode at the time was probably seasons 1, 3, 4, and 5 of 24. Jack Bauer.
Okay.
That was the other one that I would say got me that for network television. But
That would
Friday
be
Night
in my
Lights is
top
strong.
5.
Yeah.
I don't want to give you 5 because another one I would put in there is Lost, and that turned out to be not a good show. So,
Garbage.
Let's stick with Friday Night Lights. Tell me about that. What was it about that you thought drew you in?
I did not love the movie. I like Derek Luke. I'm not a big fan of Billy Bob, but I had to see the movie because it's about football in Texas, and I'm enamored with that. But it wasn't a great movie. But the TV show, it just, from the soundtrack to, like I think you've mentioned before, the way it was shot to Coach Taylor. Coach Taylor, he brought me into the show. It wasn't just about football. Even when he was on the football field, it was about life. I love that. Love that show.
I would say, so you had the movie, right? The movie with the same name. But then you had another movie that was kind of along the same lines that was more dramatizing it. Because the movie was based on real life.
Did that movie you're talking about have a line like, if you want to win, put booby in?
No, that was the real movie.
Okay.
But then you had the side movie called Varsity Blues.
Varsity
Based upon the
Blues.
same thing. It was based upon Texas high school football. The same scenario. Quarterback gets hurt. Second string quarterback has to step in. The exact same scenario, but
Is that
it
Paul
was
Walker?
more. It was Paul Walker.
Oh my
your boy.
gosh.
And
Forgot about that.
what's the name's father? John Voight.
Oh, he was an awful person.
He was awful, but he was good in the movie. So you take the better parts of those 2 movies and you put it together and you get the TV show Friday Night Lights.
That's a good pull. All right, fair enough. And I'm not a huge Varsity Blues fan. I've seen enough of it to be able to talk about it, but I think that's pretty good because there were scenes in Friday Night Lights that were football scenes I thought were pretty decent, but the scenes that were memorable to me really weren't on the football field. It had to do with Seven, Saracen losing his father. It had to do with a scene that I still don't understand why they put it in, but it's one of my favorites when Landry's dating Tyra, and they had to kill someone that is trying to attack her. I don't know why that was there, but character development in the show was strong. It wasn't just football and some corny people in Texas. Everybody had an issue, and everybody was working on it. No one was like set for life, and I like that about that show.
Well, that killing of a person who was trying to assault was season 2, which is
Weird.
the season that nobody likes.
The writer's strike, by the way. Writer's strike was that year.
That had a lot to do with it.
Let's blame it on
But I think something from the onset of the show, the opening scene of the pilot episode is Coach Taylor riding through town, listening to the local radio, talk, and they're talking about the season, how the season's going to be. So that whole scenario is very realistic. Since I now live in Texas, in Austin, Texas, It's not a small town, but it has that love of high school football like other small towns in Texas. And
if people haven't been to Texas and don't know about the size of stadiums and how serious it is, when I visited you, just passing by a stadium of a high school stadium, and it looked bigger than anything here locally for one of our colleges, they take it serious in Texas. I never really believed it, but I've seen it now. It's ridiculous.
very, very much. And I live in Central Texas. North Texas is much, much more, like the high school stadiums are humongous. Like I went to Virginia Tech, I think, for the Virginia High School Football State Championship one year.
Okay.
The size of that stadium is about the same size as some of those stadiums in northern Texas for the high school team. They are huge. So it really is everything. So that realism and turning on the radio here and hearing them break down high school football and the coach and this player and they got this new kid over here, it's mind blowing. And to somebody that doesn't come from an area where high school football is held that high.
I remember you told me that when you first got down to Texas, I would ask about the Cowboys and whatnot, and you said they just didn't talk about them, especially in Austin. I mean, it was either UT or high school, which it baffles me. I mean, back in Hampton Roads area, they talked about high school sports, but it was more so about the battle of the bands. It wasn't specifically about just the players themselves. So Texas is its own monster. There's a character that came about on Friday Night Lights that I didn't know him from other shows. He was definitely a character on a few other shows, but for me, this is the one that really put him on the national spotlight. And I say that because I discovered him. And that is Michael B. Jordan. I didn't think they could really replace the storyline that they had the first 3 seasons going to this, other school. There's going to be new characters. And he comes across the season. I think he's not a convict, but he's definitely somebody who's always in trouble. And I think he gets pulled over by the police. So he steals something or do something stupid. And the coach meets him. Yeah. And he just, they give you the background of somebody from a lifestyle where your father wasn't there, but yet he's still local to the area. Your mom is strung out on drugs. She's seen some things. You're on your own. So what happens to that guy? Whereas you judge this person that you see on the street that's acting foolish. I love the backstory they give to Vince because it makes you see somebody that, football is important and he can get him somewhere. But when he goes home, he's dealing with a lot. And that's what that show really helps you understand. The characters weren't all, the QB who had the perfect life. It was about characters who actually weren't having the best of lives, but yet they were managing to stay sane and to come together on this football field and just as a family, as a football team. I love that.
The show did a good job of addressing kind of, for the most part, realistic issues that face teenagers and especially in small town situation. And it also, in the 4th and 5th season, some in the 3rd, started addressing racial issues. Mm-hmm. In a way, not head on, but in a small way, because the East Side team that eventually the coach went to coach was from the other side of the tracks, the impoverished neighborhoods and that sort of thing. So it addressed that, and Michael B. played a big part in bringing that to light. Probably the greatest episode or the greatest scene is that scene with him where I think he had just left and a friend of his got shot or something like that.
Yes.
And he's running away from that, and his girlfriend comes and meets him, and he just breaks down like in the middle. It's like at an underpass or something, like in the street, and he just breaks down. And it's a very, very well acted, and it encompassed the struggle of a young person dealing with trying to get out of the situation he's in, sports being the outlet for that, and trying to deal with that at the same time being true to who you are and trying to move away from the things that might have made you at the same time. And
if you initially think about someone who doesn't have a lot of money, someone who's quote unquote from living in the streets or quote unquote a broken family, if you're watching, maybe you're thinking every character is going to be, oh, that's the East Side, all black kids. That's another part that I loved about this show. No, it showed everybody had somewhat the same problems because you had the Riggins boys who, for all intents and purposes, there was no mention or scenes with their parents in it. They kind of raised themselves, and it got one of them, went to jail for it. And these were white young men. They went to jail. You had Tyra, who was just a horrible person when the story began, but she went from being the girl who was sleeping with everyone in school to, by the end, hooking up with the guidance counselor who ended up being Tammy, Coach's wife, becoming like an academic major. She was going to do things in her life, and she was leaving to go to college. And I think that's what I like. It wasn't showing that only certain people have problems. Everybody has problems. Many people don't have stable homes. They can still be somewhat successful by the sense of staying alive and doing something with your life. And I think everyone, for the most part, in that show came away with an opportunity after leaving high school. And I like that a lot.
Correct, because from an entertainment standpoint, they gave you a beginning and an end to almost every character on the show, and they will present a problem or show you something that's going on in that character's life that you would care about to some degree, varying degrees. But they gave you a beginning, middle, and end. The person had started this way, something happened along the lines, and then they had an ending. And they did that with almost all the characters in the show. So by the end, they really wrapped up the storylines in a tight way, and an acceptable way, and something that was somewhat believable. And I like the way they did that, because 5 seasons, it's really is kind of short.
It is.
5 years and I don't know, 20 episodes a year if it's a good show, if that. So it did a good job of bringing that all home in a relative short amount of time.
And at the same time, it dealt with issues of family life for a coach that from the outside, everyone thought he had everything going for him. He's Coach Taylor. The stress of being a coach in a major town like that, a little town like that. His wife, the stress she dealt with of working, not working. How does that look for my husband? How does he deal with it? Me not being there with our child. What's happening when, the wife continuously, if you know anything about coaching, if you're a good coach, you're possibly going up the ranks and you're moving all across this country. And Coach Taylor is giving that little bit of a backstory where she's been following him everywhere. And this school, when you first get there, Dylan is that school, thinking he's going to be there forever. But by the end, a major decision has to come into play in terms of, look, is it always going to be about you and your career choices? So how that plays out at the end, I thought was well done. They didn't dramatize it. How do you say that?
Dramatize.
Ooh, gotcha. Yes. Basically, they didn't take it out too long. It ended. It was good.
It did.
And
I think one thing we have to address the story's good, the acting is fantastic. For anybody who wants to check it out, I think another thing that added to it being a good show, the way they shot the show, which was with Peter Berg was the director of it, producer of it, and they decided to shoot it not in a normal way as far as an actor hitting the mark. They do a quick scene, all right, let's do it again, that type of thing. They would have 3 cameras, almost documentary style, film an entire scene, then stop it. This allowed the actors to be more natural and to have some leeway in it. They would obviously they had a script, but they could say the lines or deliver the lines the way that they felt was good for their character. And they went through the whole thing before they would stop it. So, and they said most of the time the first take was the one that was used for the show. So the way they shot it added to the natural and realism of it all, and added to it being a good show.
And if you think we've kind of given the whole show away, you don't need to watch it, you still should. We didn't touch on anything dealing with Lila Garrity or Jason Street or what really was going on with Riggins himself. But there is one character, you mentioned everybody had a kind of nice wrap up. By the end, did you care about J.D. McCoy?
No, because by the end he was presented as the villain. He was a villain in the show. So him and his father. So Correct. It was like you didn't care about him. That's just the way it goes. Like you have to love everybody.
That's how you've always rolled. So I appreciate that about you.